Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX. And our mystery guest is revealed, none other than Mr. Tumi. It is such a pleasure to have the mayor of Twitter with us.
Thank you very much, Cesar, and I'm delighted to be on your show. It's very interesting. Mayor of Twitter, I must actually update my bio. I've been called so many things, but I'm glad to be conferred that title.
So I have a very serious question to start off with.
Yes.
When Helen Zille leaves the Premier's residence, will you be DJing at the party? I just want to know, has she approached you?
Listen, Helen, I know you probably watch this. Hit me up. A tweet, and I'll do it for free, actually. Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
it's so great to have you, because it's like you're coming at a time when Twitter streets are also on fire. So much is happening in our country.
Yeah, no. In fact, I think especially since Jan, there's just so many things that are happening. Every day there's a bomb that's dropping, if not bombs, all over. And I think today was testament to that, amongst other things. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But today the streets were on fire, and I guess your show comes at the right time to deal with these fires and let us dissect that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I think I do want to get into a lot of those things, but I think because you're such a prominent person on Twitter, people don't know like the complexity of where you come from. And I think what's really interesting about you is, on the one hand, you're an activist. You know, you make your views clear, and some of those views are quite radical.
Yes.
On the other hand, you're a corporate lawyer.
Of course.
You occupy the corporate world, and you see that side of our country as well. And you know, how do you navigate those two different kinds of worlds? Because I know there are also a lot of people wanting to get into the corporate space, but they think they have to silence a part of themselves in order to do that.
Thanks. I think that's an excellent question. Most of the time when I do this, people just get in straight and stuff. But I think, I need to just rewind back from my history. I mean, born in Soweto, born and bred, went to a school in Soweto, Dobsonville, and then got into Wits. And at the time, did LLB, and then immediately thereafter, I then went to Lawyers for Human Rights. So the NGO and the activism, as you speak of, was there. I mean, at Wits, I was the student manager for Wits volunteer program, and we'll do outreach stuff and all of that. So that aspect has always been there. But what is interesting in relation to your question is, from Lawyers for Human Rights, which is an NGO representing mainly South Africans, non-South Africans, immigration, and all those type of issues. And then I subsequently moved and worked for government. So I worked for judges in the labor court, and then I got to see, the end product, which effectively, when someone is fired or there's a strike, I sit there, I would do the research, talk to the judge, and then assist, sometimes draft judgments and stuff like that. But it got interesting for me, and I was like, but, rather than being at the end of the action, what's out there? And that's how then I ended up at a law firm in Sandton and practiced as an attorney. And that's obviously corporate South Africa, and at the helm of it. And then where action, client-driven, deadline, and insane hours. And most of the time I wasn't at home, depending on the matter. You get in tight deadlines. Subsequently, I left practice, and I'm still in corporate SA. And working for another private sector company. And the pressures at least are there, but not as crazy as the law practice.
And as a black South African working in the corporate world, how do you see questions of race as they play out in the private economy? Because we often talk about, questions of race in public debates.
100%.
But of course, there's that whole world of corporate South Africa and the difficulty of often navigating it as a black South African.
100%. So I think the issue of race and politics has really been a topical issue in private or corporate SA, and what people sometimes would refer to as WMC, amongst other things. And it's not just only topical, but I think, and I'm not talking because I'm there. I believe even while I'm there, some of us, we are leading that type of change. There's a need and urgency for corporate SA to start appreciating the space in which they operate in, and those conversations are real. There's various commitments that's been done within the private sector to ensure that people are not only put up because of their race and them being black, but people who are actually driving particular change. And I know that some of these, and we see it all the time and in other instances, very uncomfortable. Because it's uncomfortable because you have a history of people used to one way of things. Senior management is only a certain type of race, and how do you then get that mix together? But not only just, you know, to balance out the numbers in an employment equity report, but for people to be in leadership positions to make real change.
Sure.
So I think corporate SA is doing it. Whether it's doing it as frequent and as, you know, speedily as we want, it's something else. But I think the conversations are happening. There is change that is happening. And that space is very uncomfortable, but it's necessary, and
Sure.
it ought to happen as soon as possible with the right people.
Absolutely. And I suppose from the corporate world to the political world,
Yes.
things are just lit.
No, that's something else.
Yeah. I mean, the president's son, I'm hearing now there was an oversight, but there was a very different story given to Parliament.
Yes.
Then there was a very different explanation. Now that explanation changes. How are you seeing this whole president's son thing? Because it just seems strange to me. I'm not going to lie.
No, I think that story is very interesting on various fronts. And I think we need to rewind a little. Interestingly, for me, there's a tale of the president's sons.
Yeah.
You know, so we know that there was Jacob Zuma with Tutuzani. Now we have Cyril Ramaphosa with Andile, amongst other things. And these are two interesting characters, because if you look at it, sometimes some say Ramaphosa appeals to private sector, and Jacob Zuma is more people-orientated. But I think what brings them together, and if one was to contrast, is the sons and the spaces they occupy. The other one, it was said that, you know, a Gupta person, amongst other things. Now we know Andile, amongst other things, as a potential Bosasa benefactor. So it's an interesting thing. What we're seeing and what's apparent for me is the president's son, be it Jacob Zuma or Ramaphosa, people who literally don't need to be involved in such things or deals, especially with shady characters, but they are right in the center. So if you take Tutuzani, we already know what the issues are and what's happening there. With Andile, I think it's shocking in various fronts, and probably three fronts. Firstly, it's Cyril Ramaphosa. No one expects that to happen. You know, he's the guy who comes in and says, morally, you can't have this and stuff. And then we have Bosasa as an institution that has been bankrolling the ANC, buys people, you know, food and ensures that there are certain bribes to get a benefit. Now, how does the president's son, who's always morally upright, be involved or associated with these things? And that's why there's this shockwave that's now happening on the Twitter streets.
SMWX. No young people are around the decision-making table. Let some new voices come to the fore. Follow us on WhatsApp or catch us live Tuesdays and Thursdays. Out with the old, in with the new. SMWX.